Hello once again, my good people. My name is Nick Pell, and this is coming from my white room once again. Now, as you know, 2012 is coming to an end, so I figured I would do a top 10 video. Now, this is a video of the top 10 books I read in 2012. So, there should be a review out for every one of these things. Look them up. I'll probably put annotations with the various books as a link to the video. So look up here somewhere. Now, obviously, I didn't read anything current besides like the 8th Walking Dead book. That's probably the only 2012 released book that I read this year, to my knowledge. But this is my personal list of the top 10 books that I read in 2012. Coming in at number 10 for me is an autobiography, the only autobiography that I read this year, and that is Nikki Sixx's The Heroin Diaries, A Year in the Life of a Shattered Rock Star. This book was really good because it was a journal of Nikki Sixx's, his personal thoughts and inquiries and ideas when he was heavily addicted to heroin and other drugs and alcohol and a bunch of things. And it's during the Girls tour that Motley Crue did. He was a bass player in the Motley Crue. It was just a very interesting book. It got me actually into the band Motley Crue. I have 2 CDs now. It's just a very unique insight into someone who is now clean. Just a very interesting insight in seeing what they were like and the fact that they were able to recover from that. Number 9 on the list is a book that I read for a college class by Ngugi Mahfouz, which is called Palace Walk. This was a book about a family, a father, a wife, and 5 children. It's set in Egypt during a time of revolution, as most of Mahfouz's books are set. It's essentially talking about how the family deals with this, but also about how they deal with interfamily issues and just religion and tradition and various other things in that sense. And it was a very interesting book. It's part 1 of a trilogy. I'd bet to read the other 2 books. I probably will at some point. But yeah, Palace Walk, my number 9 choice. Number 8 on the list is a book that just had part 1 of a trilogy come out in theaters on December something, and that is The Hobbit. I read this the first time over the summer. If you saw my review, you saw that. It was written more with the intention of being good for kids, I felt like. It was still a really good story, a really good adventure. It covered the experiences of Bilbo Baggins in a very quick format. It was a very good book, a good prequel by Tolkien, and just an enjoyable book for the most part. Number 7 on this list is Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones. The main reason that I have this on here is because it is the beginning of an epic trilogy, which will be 7 books, I'm assuming. Assuming it doesn't expand it ever more or decrease it by 1. It introduces great characters, it has a great plot, a lot of twists and turns, and very unexpected events that are revealed throughout the course of the book. This was the book that really got me into the series and made me want to keep going with the other 4. Game of Thrones is my number 7 choice for books that I've read this year. Number 6 on the list is a book that I also read over the summer, and it's by Stieg Larsson, and it is the 2nd book in his Millennium Trilogy, entitled The Girl Who Played with Fire. This was probably my favorite book in that trilogy because it was more action oriented. It wasn't as straightforward mystery novel as A Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was. It had more action. It got more into the overall plot of the trilogy, and it was just a much more enjoyable experience. Lisbeth Salander was a very interesting character. She was probably one of my favorite characters in literature, and probably still is. And then Mikhail Blomkvist, also a very good character, 2nd main character in that series, and this book brings up both their qualities and, like I said, expands upon more or less what the trilogy is going to be mainly about. So yeah, Girl Played with Fire, my number 6. Next up, another book that I read for a college class. So I read this in the spring, and it has stuck with me. I've noticed various things about it since I read it, and so that shows just how influential it was. And this is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and it was a very memorable book. I felt that it was kind of slow to start out with, and then had one really pointless chapter. Besides that, the story is very memorable. It has a lot of things that one should know, and some themes that are very important to how to live and in terms of consciousness and doing the right thing and corruption and all that stuff. So I felt that, yeah, Picture of Dorian Gray, very good book, and one that you should definitely check out if you have not already. And my number 4 choice is another George R.R. Martin book, Dance with Dragons. This is the 5th book in the series. It's probably the longest. It's one of the longer books of the series as well. It's the most recent one. It sets up essentially what the 6th book is going to be, The Winds of Winter. Sets up various characters. It takes place. It's basically, like I said, it's one of the transition novels, in my opinion. That and Feast for Crows kind of move the characters to where they need to be for the 6th book, which in my opinion will probably be close to the action that was Storm of Swords. So, Dance with Dragons, very good book, sets up the rest of the series very well. And now we are in my top 3, and this is exciting because these are the 3 books that I thought, or that in my opinion, were the most exciting for me to read, I got the most into, and the ones that I was the most disappointed with when they were done, just in terms of I wanted it to keep going, and I didn't want it to be done. Number 3 on this list, The Walking Dead, Book 4. This was probably the most exciting book because of the way it ended. I'm not going to say how it ended because it ends basically how Season 3 will end, more or less. But this book set up a very big amount of events. It kind of separated a bunch of people and changed a bunch of things. The governor is showing that he can take a lot of pain and still come back with full force. Shows how manipulative he is, but he also shows how people start to kind of see that, how people start to work with Rick, and it just develops a bunch of characters, causes a bunch of significant deaths, and it's probably the best book out of this hardcover series that I've read thus far. So, yeah, Walking Dead Book 4, very good book. Number 2, this one I wasn't really expecting to go on to number 2, but it ended up there. So, but I agree that it should be here, and that is Catching Fire of the Hunger Games trilogy. This book, like with Stieg Larsson's Millennium Trilogy, it is the 2nd book in the trilogy, and is probably the most exciting because it sets up events that will occur in the 3rd and final book. I felt like most of the trilogies that I read this summer, the first one kind of developed the characters, introduced the reader to the characters, and then the 2nd and 3rd book kind of developed the rest of the actual trilogy in terms of its story. And this book sets up the revolution that will occur in Mockingjay. It's a very interesting book, very good book. Quick read, so that is also a very nice thing. Catching Fire, if you have not read it, read the trilogy. It's very good, really short, really easy to get through, but really worth your time. And my number 1 for this year that I've read, if you've watched my reviews, a bunch of them, you can probably guess which one I'm gonna say is my number 1. But if you can't, here it is. George R.R. Martin's A Storm of Swords. This was easily my favorite book of 2012 when I was deciding whether or not to put this list together. This was instantaneously my number 1 choice because I just remember that I enjoyed it so much. It has so many important aspects to the rest of the series. People die that are very significant, and that kind of sets up the rest of the series. There's a lot of more action sequences, there's a lot more character development. Characters kind of go in the direction that I'm assuming they're going to be going in for the rest of the series, and it kind of sets up the rest of the series in a very dramatic way. The characters continue to be interesting. We get to see another side of Jaime Lannister. We get to see Jon Snow interact with the wildlings and kind of see the other side of this big skirmish with the Night's Watch. I don't know, it just sets up so many things. I enjoyed reading it so much. It didn't feel like a chore at all. There are probably some slow parts, but every big book has those, so there, it was excusable. But yeah, Storm of Swords, easily my favorite of the series so far. Definitely my number one for 2012. That is my list. Put your list down below if you want to. And yeah, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this. I figured I should probably do something. I have probably 2 months worth of content at the moment, not just book reviews but other things too. So get ready for those, and those will start up January 13th is when I believe they will start being released. So, as always, like, favorite, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. I would appreciate it immensely. And as always, my name is Nick Pell, and once again, my good people, keep on reading and have a happy new year.